Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot, and as always, I am your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone, if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Maddie McConnell on the
Hey,
podcast. She's coming to us from the West Coast. She's coming to us from Oregon, and she's in her peak week. So the fact that she was like that hyper enough to just say hey to us, I'm shocked by. Because most times, if I ever talk to someone on their peak week, they're like me times 10, where they're just like slowly dying inside. So I am shocked by that, which, hey, that's a good thing. And her husband also just won his pro card yesterday. So congratulations to him. I'll leave a link to his Instagram page, down below. But yeah, she's just on here to share her health and fitness journey, just to discuss all things health and fitness. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Maddie, thank you so much for coming on.
thanks for having me.
See, I'm just shocked by this. Again, like I said, on your peak week and you're this peppy and everything because I've had some experiences with guests in the past where you talk to them in peak week and like I have to do 95% of the talking, and I'm fine with that. But like this is going to be a nice little change. So before we get into all that, Maddie, to get things started, why don't you just give us your backstory on what inspired and motivated you to get in shape and how that led to where you're at right now?
Ugh, that's kind of a long story.
Take your
I've
time.
I've always been someone that's been into health and fitness. I played sports growing up. I was a total tomboy. I wore basketball shorts and a baseball hat for the majority of elementary school. I didn't own my first pair of jeans until middle school. And I loved basketball, was really my favorite sport. I did do track and I played soccer, but basketball was really like my love, even though I wasn't meant for it because, I'm 5'4" and 3/4. And it doesn't really, put you in an advantage when you're playing basketball. So even though I wasn't necessarily made for it, I loved it and I loved pushing my body, having a team, just all of the things that came with it. And I continued playing basketball, like club basketball year round, and then it transformed into like actually I was deciding on when I was figuring out where I wanted to go to school for my undergrad. I had talked to several like D2 schools and was thinking about going there, but then I decided that I wanted the like big school experience. And obviously, I wasn't quite great enough to play D1, so I decided to go to OSU, which is, you know, being home of the Ducks from Eugene's kind of like a traitor move, but that's okay. I went anyways. And in going there, I went there for like 3 years, and I happened to run into a girl that I had played club basketball with, and she was playing at Lynn Benton, which is the community college that's right by OSU. And she was like, "You should come to our open gym sometime." Um, and I hadn't played basketball in like 3 years since I had graduated high school. I did take basketball classes at OSU pretty much every term, and I was always the only girl in the class. But I loved it. So I agreed to go to the class with her or go to open gym with her. And then the coach was like, "Okay, so are you playing or what?" So I played at Lynn Benton. They ended up doing away with the program due to budget cuts that after that year. And so I graduated OSU, didn't play my like senior year at OSU, but still had 1 year of eligibility left. So Lane Community College, which is in Eugene, where my hometown is, they reached out to me and they said, "Hey, we understand that you still have a year of eligibility. How about we just pay for your classes? You can take classes for fun, and you can come play for us." And I was like, "Okay, that sounds fun." So I took like, everything that I would was just really interested in. So I did take a health and fitness class. I took like photography and all these fun things, and played basketball one last year there. And then when basketball ended, I just felt like a void, like this big hole, like something that had been such a big part of my life was gone, and I needed something. So I got into HIIT training and started teaching classes at this place called Rena that's in Eugene. And it was like a high intensity interval training, but it was all calisthenics. So it was a lot of burpees, a lot of push ups, lunges, all those type of things. And you reach a certain point with calisthenics, and it's like you can't really push yourself any further. And as someone that considers himself an athlete, you're always looking for that like next thing to kind of like raise or bring you up next level. So um, then I actually met my husband during that time, and he had been doing Julian Smith, his daily pump, and it was like a $6 app you could purchase and do all of the workouts that Julian Smith, which is a pretty well-known bodybuilder, was doing. And so he convinced me. He was like, I think you would really like weight training. And I'm like, we did it a few times during, basketball, but it was never really like legitimate weightlifting. It was like, go lift with your friends, as I think you and I talked about before this podcast. Throw some weight on the bar. You don't really know what you're doing or like what it's for. But so he convinced me to do the daily pump with him. I started doing leg days with him, and I was like, wow, this is actually really fun. Like I do enjoy this. And simultaneously, I was getting my master's in education and had thought that I wanted to teach PE. Finished my student teaching and was like, I don't know if I really want to teach. Like, it felt a lot more like babysitting, especially with the class sizes in Oregon. They're getting larger and larger. And I saw how stressed a lot of the teachers were that I worked with. And I'm like, I love working with kids. I love the idea of teaching PE, but I don't know if this is really for me. And I was waitressing tables at the time at a BJ's Brew House, and a group of bodybuilders came in and sat down at my table. I was waiting on them. They had just competed in some competition. And this one lady was super friendly, was grilling me about what I wanted to do with my life. And she was like, "Oh, honey, you just need to be a personal trainer." I'm like, I never really considered that as an option before. And she's like, "You should check out Genuine Fitness. It's a gym in Eugene that I now work at. It's an amazing place. I think you would like it." So I went there in hopes of kind of figuring out if personal training would be an option. And I was actually going to just hire a personal trainer, do a few sessions, and just see what it was like. And they were actually hiring for an internship at the time. So I ended up getting the internship after doing an interview, completed my internship, and then got offered a job there right after that. So I finished my master's program, and I had this like why in the road. I was like, I could go teach and apply for teaching jobs, or I could just do this thing for fun for a while and see if it leads to anything. And I'm really glad that I did choose the route that I did, especially because that was like 2019 and COVID was about to happen. And all of my friends that went into teaching, it was a big, like very stressful time to have your first year of teaching. So I started working at Genuine Fitness, and our gym is kind of unique in the way that we have a bunch of personal trainers that are all independent contractors. So we all charge our own hourly rate, and we pay rent to the gym owner, Aaron Orton, monthly. And it's not open to the public, so you have to have a training session with a trainer to be able to utilize the space. And so just in working there, all of the trainers, like especially when I and now still, but when I first got there, like they all had their own kind of niches and specialties, and I learned a lot from them. I at this point knew nothing about bodybuilding. I liked working out. I had started resistance training with my husband, and then I started to like it more and more. And then when I started working at Genuine Fitness, it was like my passion just kind of like overflowed for resistance training. And I learned a lot just from all of the people that I worked with. We had, I don't know how many pros at our gym, but it was a lot. Like a majority of the personal trainers that worked at our gym were bodybuilding pros, natural pros. So bodybuilding was not something like necessarily on my radar until I started working at Genuine. And then I got introduced to it through them. I was already living the lifestyle, so I was already, working out usually 5-6 days a week, resistance training. I had started prior to Genuine working on the nutrition component myself. Like when I played basketball, I knew nothing about nutrition, so I was always actually kind of heavier set. And then when I started doing bodybuilding, like Julian Smith, all of that kind of stuff led me towards like, oh, what are, this is what macros are, and this is how you can control your body weight and manipulate things to give you a specific desired outcome, like for your physique. So I just played around with my fitness pal on my own prior to Genuine. I really didn't know what I was doing, but I still managed to lose a significant amount of weight, like 40 pounds. Because I was like 178 at my heaviest. And currently, like, obviously I'm prepping, so I weigh less, but today I was like 138. So yeah, so big difference. So then let's see. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about doing bodybuilding, and some of my coworkers were like, I think you would really enjoy it, similar to how my husband was like, I think you would like resistance training. It's not something that I ever like planned for myself or saw for myself. It kind of just like fell upon it. And then I was like, well, it would help garner more clients. If I knew how to coach someone in bodybuilding, that would just open a whole new clientele base for me. So really, it wasn't out of a drive to like, I don't know, compete necessarily or feel competitive. Because as I've gotten older, I've also gotten like less and less competitive. I just love movement. I just love moving my body, and all of the things that come with it, the endorphins and all of that. But I was like, you know what, this will be a good like business move for me, just to learn and a learning experience. So I'll give it a try. And my first attempt was 2020, yeah, 2020. And then obviously COVID happened. That got shut down, so I didn't get to compete. I had only done a few months of prep, and then they were like, no. And actually, it was funny because I was at a winery with a group of friends when I found out that all of the shows had gotten canceled, and I was abstaining from alcohol because I was in prep. And my buddy, who's one of my coworkers, had gotten a call that all the shows have been canceled, and he was like, you might want to pour yourself a glass. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, the shows are canceled. It is happening. And I'm like, damn it. So 2020 was a no-go. 2021, I was able to actually compete. I did a full season of prep. I only competed in 2 shows. And the first show was the Columbia Classic in Washington with the WMBF. The next one was the Cecil. And I did fairly well at those shows. I competed in bodybuilding and fit body at the first one, and I won the bodybuilding, but I only competed in the like novice. It was my first time. I was scared. And then the second show, I also won the categories that I competed in, bodybuilding and let's see, fit body. I got second place. And then figure, I wasn't planning on competing in figure, but my coach, Aaron Orton, who was also the promoter for the show, he was like, we need one more person in this category for it to be like a pro, or no, it wasn't a pro qualifying. Sorry, memory. It was a while ago, and I'm in prep, so bear with me. But anyways, he basically just threw me in because he needed an extra person. It wasn't something that I was like, oh, I think I will do well at figure. But I happened to win that class. I didn't win my pro card. There wasn't enough people. But that's kind of what got me into like the figure realm. And then in 2022, that was like my most recent season prior to this one. I did take 2023 off. But 2022, I competed in a lot of shows, and I actually wrote them down because I was like, I'm not going to be able to remember this while I'm on prep. But I competed in the Columbia Classic, the Oregon Open, the Muscle Mayhem, the Cecil Phillips Classic, and I ended up pretty much winning all of them, with the exception of at the Oregon Open, which is an NPC show. I did get second in physique, but I did get first in all of the other categories that I entered in. And then I won my pro card at the Muscle Mayhem for figure. At the Cecil Phillips Classic, I won my bodybuilding and my fit body pro card. So I won like 3 within a short time span, which is I was not honestly expecting to have that kind of outcome. Again, I was just mostly competing because I don't know, originally I was like, oh, this will be a good learning experience. And then when I did it that first time, I'm like, oh, this is actually really fun. And I get to see all of my hard work that I do in the gym. I get to see what, like, reveal all my hard work when I do lose a little bit more body fat. Well, not a little bit, a lot more body fat than what I usually carry around. So you're kind of your own like science experiment in a way, and it's fun to just watch your body transform. But yeah, so I won my pro cards, and then I ended up going to compete as my first pro show with the WMBF in Boston at the Monster Mash. I won that as well. And then that I hadn't necessarily been planning on doing Worlds that year. I had actually started my prep the 1st of January. So Worlds is in November, mid-November. And it was a long season. Again, I thought that like after the Cecil Phillips which is in July, that I would be done, but I was like on a roll. So I kind of just kept going. And I did take a bit of a diet break in September. And I say diet break, but you're still like not eating very many calories at that point. Like you bring your food up a little bit and you kind of just hang out there. But I was still, measuring all my macros and doing all the things. It wasn't really a break necessarily, but it did help kind of send me into the rest of the season. And then when I competed at Worlds, which was in LA in November in 2022, I won the world figure title, which is still weird to say because it's not something that I believe that I would ever do. So yeah, that's all of my story.
I didn't mention that in the intro because I wanted you to mention it, that you won the figure world, because I didn't want people to be like, wait, what? That's so, I had to leave that be. But first of all, how the hell did you go through being on prep for, I mean, I know you took a break in September, but how did you deal with that? Basically for like 10 months, then you were on prep.
Um, I actually really enjoy prep. I like having the structure. I like having a goal to aim towards. I like watching my body transform. I'm already doing the training anyways. And I tend to be someone that thankfully responds pretty well to being in a deficit. Like I know that some people turn into zombies. For the most part, my energy stays pretty good. Occasionally I get tired, and I don't tend to be someone that gets like grumpy or moody. I just like not my response. I don't know. I will definitely get tired and just have less energy to do day-to-day things. But overall, I think I'm like lucky, knock on wood, like that's been my response so far. And I know I'm sure I'll reach a point where, I'm at a very fatigued state later on, but the majority of it was pretty good. And my husband is also a huge support. He is obviously really into bodybuilding as well because he just won his pro card. But having his support and kind of being able to work with him as a team makes life a lot easier because we're both on the same page. But the first year I competed, it was just me competing. My husband didn't compete. And that was interesting because he would be going out with friends and I'd be like, I'm gonna just stay home. Like when I say out, like out to the bars or something, I'm like, I don't want to be around a bunch of drunk people and I'd rather just get my sleep. So I'd stay home. And I'd still go out to like dinners and stuff, drink my diet soda. But so that was, I think it's definitely easier being both on prep because we're both feeling kind of similar. We're on the same wavelengths. And so this year has been really nice or the last 2 seasons we both competed. So it's been really nice, sharing that experience together and then also having the support of my partner.
No, and I mean, it's the support is definitely just one of the biggest things that you can have, because I talk to so many people that don't have that support, and it really does mean so much of a difference to those people. But your husband, like you said, just won his pro card last night. First of all, what did he have to eat last night to celebrate his pro card win? And second of all, was that hard for you at all just to see him absolutely pig out in front of you?
Well, actually, surprisingly, he didn't pig out because we do have another competition
Oh God.
coming out soon. He did have like some French fries at the wedding off of his sister's plate, and he did have a couple Corona lights. Woo! Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that's when the friends at the wedding just got to like hold him down and open his mouth and just like start force feeding him, because I get that point. But again, it's just all the stories that I hear about the bodybuilders, it just becomes more and more impressive just how you guys are mentally able to go through all of that. Because like I told you before we started recording, so many times people just think about the physical changes that happen in the sport, but the mental change as well. What has this journey been like for you mentally, just to not only see your body change, but to see how much stronger mentally you become?
Um, it's really fun. Like I've always, like I said, loved sport, and mostly because it gives you the opportunity to see what your body is capable of. And like with basketball, for example, I really liked practicing a skill over and over, and then that satisfaction of like getting better and better at it. And resistance training is the same way. Like I never feel like my form is absolutely perfect. It's always going to be something that's kind of like a work in progress. And I've been doing it since 2018, and I still, or 2019, 2018, and I still, like, there's certain movements where I have a light bulb go off and I'm like, wow, just thinking about certain cues, or like you have these aha moments. And it's those things that are just so fun because you just continue to progress and progress. And yeah, feeling strong and capable is such a good feeling. You know, have been there's moments where my husband wants me to help him carry something from the car or whatever it is, and I'm like, yeah, I got this. Like I don't have to say like, oh honey, can you come get this out of the car for me? Like I
But you
really
still do at times, let's be honest.
I mean, yeah, occasionally definitely got to play that card here and there when the time is right. But it is just fun to feel strong and capable, and ultimately I want to be able to have independence as long as possible. And so if I can, maintain as much strength going into my older years, because let's be real, after 30, which happy birthday recently. Or you just oh, that maybe that was one of the rules I wasn't supposed to mention.
It's fine. I just joke about that. I really honestly don't care, but I like to, it's one of the acts that I put on here that I actually pretend like I actually care about getting old.
Yeah. But I mean after 30, because I honestly woke up on my 30th birthday with the biggest kink in my neck, and I was like, this is the end. Like this is where it goes all downhill from here. And I definitely, you know, started to notice more aches and pains after 30. I actually do have to have knee surgery after this year on my knee, unfortunately. So I'm, trying not to take my health for granted. And I want to do, strengthen my body as much as possible so that I can continue doing the things that I love to do for as long as possible.
Yeah. And when you were getting started training, because I always love to ask this because everyone's body's built differently, no matter how many times I have to, try to shake people down and remind them that like, hey, I could train and do the same stuff that Jay Cutler does, and I'm not going to end up looking like Jay Cutler. Everyone always has that one body part though when they start training that really, really takes off, that they don't have to train as much. And then everyone has that one body part that they just have to drag behind and train to oblivion. What's been the one body part that like even till now, like you don't really have to focus on it at all? And then what's been the one body part that like you're just like, okay, I have to train this, 4 times a week basically?
The one body part that like took off, I think probably would be my back, which is interesting because I didn't necessarily like, I did play sports. So a lot of the time when someone plays a sport and then they start going to bodybuilding, you're like, oh, you can kind of like see that transfer of like they already had a lot of mature muscle and it's like transferring over. But I look at pictures of myself like from when I played basketball from behind, and I have like no lats, like I'm just a stick. So for whatever reason, my back I feel like is probably my strong suit, and that's just something that just took off without me having to necessarily do a lot of extra work on. And then as far as like lagging muscle group, I would probably say my triceps. I don't like training them. They need more training, especially my left one is like my Nemo fin.
How the hell do you not like training triceps? That's like that's like being the gym bro. That mean it's like buys and tries all day. So that's honestly my favorite area to trade, because like I've always said, if you have nice tries, it can make up for very slacking buys.
Yeah. Well, Bis and tris are just arms in general are just not my favorite. I like training. I like training everything else, but biceps, triceps, and calves are probably, just not.
I can agree with you on the calves because I'm 6'3", and just calves are the one thing I've always made the joke. I could inject pure muscle into my calves and they're not going to grow an ounce. It's just, which is funny because the back was also the one thing that really took off for me. But like I was very skinny up until I was probably like 16 or something like that, just because I grew really quickly and then finally like worked myself into that. So yeah, it's just it's fascinating how different people's bodies are. But you mentioned that you love the practice and then eventually seeing yourself get better as you practice. There's probably not one thing in this sport that is an example of that more than posing. What has your relationship with posing been like? We get that
Posing,
reaction every time.
yeah, posing is my least favorite part. I'm not much of a person that likes to be in the spotlight, to be honest. Like being on stage is probably my least favorite part of the whole thing. And, posing goes along with that. Like I said, I just like the lifestyle for the most part and the process of getting to the stage, but the actual stage portion is probably my least favorite. I like going to the competition for the standpoint of like getting to meet all the people who are so like-minded, and that the part is really fun to meet new people. But yeah, the stage portion and the posing, that's also something that I'm still continuously working on, and so I honestly think it's harder than training, like mentally too.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the one thing that shocked me the most when I started doing this podcast is that for so many people posing is the hardest thing in this lifestyle. And I couldn't agree more. Especially, I've been recently filming some workouts with some guests too, and then they take me through their pose. If you want to see 6'3" me try to go through a bikini posing routine, I mean, I haven't released it yet because, dear God, that's gonna be. But like even after that, I was like, good God, this is just a nightmare. And it's you get more of a workout in than your actual workout a lot of times, especially when you're doing posing as well. But you mentioned before that you were a big tomboy. How hard was that for you that first time stepping on stage to put on all the makeup, to go through all the glamour stuff? Was that something that you were just like, I can't imagine myself doing?
Yeah, pretty much. I still don't really know how to wear makeup. The only thing that I do know how to do is put on fake lashes, which makes me look like I'm put together, even though I'm not. And when it comes to makeup, I've been really fortunate. I've had a really good friend. Her name's Carrie Gallic. She helps. She's done my makeup. She's really good at it. She's an IFBB pro. And if she's not there, then I just hire the company, somebody to do my makeup for me, because when it comes to makeup, I'm like, I've had thoughts about like, ooh, I'm doing so many shows this upcoming year. Maybe it would be worth it to like actually learn how to do makeup so I could save money. And then the thought of actually like doing my own, I'm just like, it's not worth it to me. So, yeah, the only time I wear makeup really is at shows, aside from my eyelashes, which I don't know if you consider that makeup. But I'm very, yeah, I don't, it's not my strong suit.
Hey, well, at least you're not like one of those people that I know that go to the gym with like full makeup on, and you're just like, why are you doing that? Because like if you work out, if you exert any really physical thing in the gym, you're gonna just sweat it all off. And I see that happen sometimes. So at least there's that. Because then there's other people who's like, why would you want to do that? First of all, your eyes are gonna get all messed up, and your faces. I've seen it happen a couple times. It's like, especially when they go on the treadmill too, and I'm just like, what is going through your mind that you do that? And then that leads me into, I mean, I'm gonna have to bring up the C word, cardio, which I hate more than life itself. I mean, I go for walks all the time, but like that's not real cardio for me. That's just, getting my 10,000 steps in. But is cardio something that you've ever enjoyed, or is it something that is just like it's a necessary evil? Because I have talked to some psychopaths on this podcast. They're like, oh yeah, I love cardio. And then I, report them to the nearest, therapy center to get them the help that they need. But what's your stance on cardio?
I think I'm like part psycho. I mean, I did do a half marathon at
Oh
one point. I
God.
was trying to figure out what to do after basketball. I don't know if I necessarily enjoyed it. I did like the feeling afterwards, after completing long runs. My body is just not made for, like, my legs are nubs. So I'm just not made for running. But there is something about just like, I don't know, the endorphins and like getting a good sweat on, that feels really good afterwards. I haven't been doing like a lot of hard cardio. My cardio right now is just steps. So I just walk my dogs pretty much daily, usually around 2 miles. And that's been enough for now. In the past, I've done stair climber, which I do hate. I don't like stair climber. Like only usually ever do it for like 20 minutes, and like by like 3 minutes in, I'm like, this is horrible. But listening to podcasts definitely helps with cardio. I've found it's kind of fun because I don't have a lot of other time to like sit down and really like enjoy a podcast. So it almost feels like a treat when I get to do my cardio that I get to listen to podcasts. And yeah, that's something that really helps. But yeah.
God, you're bringing back childhood trauma for me with that stair climber, because I had a friend who I was really good friends with growing up, and both of his parents were competitors. And whenever I would sleep over there, probably like the 20 times I slept over, about half those times we would go to bed probably around like midnight or one, and then the mom would get up at like 5 a.m. and have to go on her stair climber, which was downstairs in the room right next to where we were sleeping, make all the noise in the world. So then all of us would wake up and be like, "Oh God, this is happening again." So yeah, just even thinking about that. So I agree with you then on the, the stair climber as well. But this prep that you've done, how has it differed? Well, obviously it differed from your 2022 prep because you aren't prepping. Hopefully you aren't prepping for the whole year. But has it been easier or harder than your other two preps that you've done?
Knock on wood, this has been my easiest prep so far. I feel like each year I do it, it gets slightly easier and my body responds slightly better. So yeah, and I again like having the support of my husband because we're both competing together, that helps a lot. Um, and yeah, just mentally knowing what to prepare for. Like the first time you do a season or like competitions, you're just so scared because you don't really know what to expect. And now having been through a season where I did a lot of shows, I, you know, there's less of that the like less of the I don't know, just like the worry about the unknown, I guess. So yeah, I don't know how else it's really been different necessarily. Um,
Yeah.
I am planning on competing though, like the whole way through to another season, or not another season, but another round of potentially worlds. As of right now, I'm actually uh hoping to qualify this next weekend for the Yorton. We'll see if that happens or not. The Yorton's at the end of September, and then I will be competing at Mr. America. And this is actually, I'm wearing my herbivore shirt. I am vegan, by the way. This is my first year as a part of the plant built, like the vegan strong plant built team, and basically we're a group of athletes that competes at events to show people that you can build muscle on a plant based diet, and that plants have all the protein you need to be competitive, strong, and healthy. So they're going to um, like sponsor me to go to that event, and that will be in New Jersey in October. And then after that, potentially Worlds in Boston in November. So it's a lot of travel to the East Coast, which is going to be very expensive. But
Well, I respect you a hell of a lot for being a vegan bodybuilder. I would never do that myself personally, just because it's too damn good. I'm sorry. I look at some of those videos of like the animals, what happens to them, and I tell them, I'm sorry. It's just too good. I know it's bad, but it's like, but anyway. So if people who are thinking about, because I have had, I think probably like one or two vegan bodybuilders on the podcast as well, but when people do have that myth that they're like, oh yeah, there's no way that you can't really, put on muscle without having, animal proteins in you. What are the substitutes that you use for protein?
um, majority of my protein is like tofu. Tofu is my favorite, so I go with a lot of tofu. Seitan is like a meat alternative that's derived from wheat gluten, and we make that at home. For like 5 ounces of seitan, it's 42 and a half grams of protein. So it's like actually hard sometimes not busting my protein for the day if I'm having seitan. And then tempeh, I do supplement with protein powder, but I try not to do like more than 1 or 2 scoops a day. Um, and then soy curls, TVP. There's like a lot of things that you're not really aware of until you go vegan. You start trying all these things. And my husband, luckily, is a really good cook, and he cooks the majority of our food. Shout out to him. And So originally, like when I went vegan, I went vegan because one of my coworkers at Genuine Fitness that I met, Zachary Belknap, shout out to him. He was a vegan bodybuilder, and I'm like, dude, how do you have this much muscle? And and you're vegan? What? Like, I just didn't understand because I had never met anyone that was vegan before that had that much muscle. And then when I started talking to him more about it, like it started to make a lot more sense. And when he described the reasons for going vegan, obviously, like the environment, your health, and for the sake of the animals. And so I then in turn was like, you know what? I think I kind of want to do this. And I told my husband originally, and he was like, that's awesome. Like, I support you in whatever you do, but there's no way in hell that I'm going to go vegan. I'm like, okay, that's fine. So I got like a month in, and I was like, we were kind of cooking separate things at first, and then we started cooking things because cooking two separate meals is just like a lot of work. So then he was like, well, let's just try some new recipes. And it was like a more of an opportunity to try new things. And in the process, in doing so, we found like a lot of really fucking kick-ass recipes that we liked. And then it just kind of slowly, like, we started to phase out all of our old recipes for the new plant-based ones. And he was like, I actually dig this a lot. Like, I think I want to do it too. So so then we both became vegan. And I actually, like, the year that I started bodybuilding was the year that I went vegan. And so all of the muscle that I have, or majority of the muscle, I did have a little bit of muscle probably underneath my body fat from playing sports, but like the majority of my bodybuilder muscle that I have was built on a plant-based diet. So, um, yeah.
I also have to say this behind close. Another reason why I could never really go vegan around here, though, too, is because I do live out in the suburbs, but I'm about 5 to 10 miles away from farm country, and I'm afraid that they would, form a lynch mob or something like that if I declared myself vegan. So I have to at least politically say that I'm not. So, but no, and again, it's more power to you for doing that, because I do wish more people would, but I wish more people would, not me. So I'm one of those people where it's like, as I want more people to do this, but I won't. But like, no, I'm joking around here, everyone. But no, it's great, and I think more people should honestly look into it. And what is one go-to recipe that, like, if you could share with anyone your vegan recipes, what would it be?
Mm, I have a lot though. Probably one of my favorite things that we make is the soy curl mac and cheese. It's a vegan mac and cheese made with like nutritional yeast sauce, and we'll use like bonza noodles for extra protein. And then the soy curls, it's hard to describe what they are, but it's like the closest thing I can compare them to is like a shredded chicken, but it's just dehydrated soy. So you hydrate them in whatever sauce. I like Frank's buffalo sauce. And then you top that on top of your mac and cheese, and it's really good. My family is not vegan. They're starting to eat more and more plant-based leaning because of us. Um, and my dad's not necessarily someone that's like very adventurous when it comes to food. Like, he's very set in his ways. He orders the same exact thing every time we go to breakfast, anywhere. So he actually really likes the soy curl mac and cheese, and so far, everyone that we've shared that recipe with uh, really enjoys it. My husband and I did just start a recipe page. It's newer, so we don't have as many recipes on there yet, but we can maybe link that or something beneath your show notes if anyone wants to try any of the recipes, or if you have questions about going vegan, I'm more than happy to talk to you about that. And yeah.
I tell you what, you share me the recipe for that mac and cheese, and I will actually film myself doing it, and I will release it and see what it is. Just because it's mac and cheese, I love mac and cheese. So yeah, I will do it. I will do it for that at least. So I'll take the first step forward and see how that goes, everyone. So we can
All
we can
right.
definitely do that. But I mean, like, let's be completely honest too. You're not the average looking woman, especially as you're in your peak week. If you were to walk out in public, dressed the way you are right now, you are going to draw people's attention just because it's not something that they see that's of the norm. I compare it to sort of like being a mini celebrity, where it's like it's just it's human nature when they see something that's not normal to just be like, oh wow, that's fascinating. What has that been like for you as you've done more and more shows and gotten more and more into the sport, just realizing that, like, yeah, I am going to draw people's attention, especially as I'm in prep?
Um, I'm not really used to it. It's kind of like a weird feeling because, again, I don't like being in the spotlight. So when I see people, like, I still don't really know how to respond. I'm like, thank you, or like, I worked hard for it, or something like that. Is usually my response. But then I get like sometimes weird things. Like, I was at the grocery store the other day, and some guy was like, "Man, nice guns." And I'm like, "Thank you." And he's like, "You want to fight?" And I'm like, "No, not really."
She's 5'4", by the way,
I was
everyone.
like,
It's like, come on, guys.
they're I'm like, "They're just for looks and lifting heavy shit." And he was like, Okay." I'm like, I don't know, it's just like weird. I do get weird random comments. Sometimes it does feel good, but like most of the time I'm just like, I don't know, I just feel awkward.
First of all, any guy asking women if they want to fight just at a grocery store, that guy needs to be like tagged and like people need to follow him to make sure. No, I'm joking, everyone. But yeah, I've heard plenty of stories like that where it's just like I don't know. I think it's just because people are just that just don't see it so much. They're just kind of taken aback. And I'm personally in the upper Midwest, so we are too passive aggressive to ever say anything. Where we would just, be like, "Oh yeah, that's cool." We wouldn't even come up to you and say like, even if we thought it was great, we'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's." We're just too passive aggressive, where we don't even want to bother anyone or bug anyone. So people actually, their bodybuilders up here love it because like they get rarely any attention other than just like one glare at them, and then they're just done. And when I say glare, it's not a bad thing. They'll just get like looked at for like 1 second, then people just go back to their business. But yeah, it is fascinating just to see how different it is for people who, especially if you come from areas where like it's not prevalent at all, just to see
Yeah.
people, finally adapt.
Well, and I feel like in Oregon, people are generally pretty friendly, or like they will try to make conversation with you, like if you're at the grocery store or like you're running errands or something. And so, yeah, like I do tend to get a decent amount of comments. Um, but when it's from women, I'm like, yeah, it's good to feel strong. Or like I try to be, like show them that. And also because women with muscle often, are kind of like looked down upon in society. And I think that having muscle is beautiful. So like it's nice to like I try to like showcase that having muscle doesn't necessarily mean, especially like yeah, I mean just yeah, having muscle I think is beautiful.
Absolutely, and I blame it on. I mean, everyone on both sides of the thing. They have people that take it, way too far, and they have it on the guys thing as well, where they take it way too far. Where like you can barely fit through a door, and then people are just like, I think people then they picture that then as the stereotype that like if the minute that you mention bodybuilder, then that's the thing that pops in your mind. Where people don't realize it's like not every bodybuilder is like Hulk Hogan, basically, or like
Yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's like there's different parts of it, even for the guys too. So I think and just I do think it has been getting better. At least in the 6 years that I've been doing this podcast, it has slowly been getting better, and more women have been working out too, which is great to see. Because I remember even back in college, like 10 years ago, when I would just be. They would have the two levels. There'd be the track up top and then the gym down below. You go up to the track, it's 90% women, 10% guys, and you go down below and it's 95% guys, 5% women. And it's probably around like 75% guys, 25% women. I mean, it's slowly getting more and more, which I love to see, and it's great that we're seeing those changes. But I do gotta. So is Oregon the state still where you can't pump your own gas?
No, that actually just changed, like,
Okay.
very recently, though. So you can now pump your own gas, but they still have, like, certain places if you park someone if unless you park in the, like, designated self-serve area, someone will still come out and pump your gas for you.
What was the whole reasoning behind that for the first place that you couldn't pump your own gas?
I honestly don't know, to create jobs? I'm not sure, but, like, the first time I went to, like, Washington, I'm, like, sitting there, like, waiting for someone to come pump my gas, and no one's coming. I'm like, "What's happening?"
I was gonna say, as someone who has never had anyone else pump their own gas, like I would just yeah, I that just seems so foreign to me, and that's the one thing when you mentioned Oregon, I was like, "Oh, is that where that's from?" So yeah, they at least they got down, but I mean, again, it just yeah, it's one of those things where you look at it and you're like, "That's strange," because normally most states tend to be similar to other states, and they don't have something like that drastic as other ones. Because if I ever traveled to Oregon, yeah, they'd probably just look at me with shock if it was back in the old law where I'd just get out and pump, and I'd be like, "No, I can do this. It's one of the easier things you can do in life." But no,
Yeah.
that's that. Hey, it's again, it's fascinating when I talk to people from all different places of the country and places of the world just to see their differences. But as you're getting into this peak week, how are you going to deal with? Do you have any plans on how you're going to deal with like this next week when it comes to just the stress, the sleep, all that stuff? Because I know that you may seem great now, but that's not gonna knock on wood. That's not going to last forever. Hopefully,
Yeah,
not hopefully, but like you know what I mean.
yeah, our flight leaves Thursday morning at, like, 6 a.m., so we gotta be ready for that. I do have clients still this week in person that I train. I do also have some online clients that I train, or coach rather. So today, actually, after our podcast, I'm going to try to bust out as much meal prep as possible. We usually will, like, when we do the travel trips, we'll pre-make all of our food and then individually divide it into little baggies and then label them and then freeze them. And then one of our personal items that we'll bring on the plane with us will be this like big soft cooler bag that we then throw everything into. So if we can get that done ahead of time, honestly, that's like probably the most stressful thing. Everything else will fall into place. Like we're going to Arizona. It's supposed to be like 108 degrees there. It's not like we're gonna have to pack a lot of clothes. It should all fit, down into a little suitcase. Minus, we do have to bring black sheets so that we don't screw up the beds with our tan. And then, we really just need like our suits and um, clothes for the hotel and maybe some clothes for after. Like it's going to be a short trip. And yeah, that's pretty much the gist. And usually I would deload like during peak week, but my coach Aaron Orton is instructing me to not deload this week. I'm just gonna plow through. So training will resume as normal, which I'm okay with. I love to train.
What the hell are these promoters thinking by having a show in Arizona in August, basically? Like, what do they want you guys to suffer even more than you guys already are?
Oh no, it's gonna be great because when you're leaner, you're typically like right now in Oregon, um, it's kind of cloudy and gray and like 50, 60 or something right now, which is actually I like
That's
consider that
paradise
cold.
for me. First of all, look at it. Look at how pale I am. That cloudy and like 50 and 60, that is my heaven right there right now. So like I gotta, it's gotten to the point now where I used to be able to get the farmer's tan from baseball and other things that I do outside, but even now, like I can't, and I don't even like get burned though. But it's just like, yeah, the days when it's rainy and wet out, those are not rainy, but I'd say the cloudy days. That's like the day where I was like, God, if I'm not working that day, I can really just go out and just walk the entire day, basically. But so at least for someone like me, your weather seems great. So I just had to add that in there.
I mean, it's cool in the mornings, at least right now. And when you're lower body fat percentage, that feels cold. So my husband and I, especially because we have creamies, Ninja creamies, like every night. That's it's just a necessity. And that's something also that has made this prep so much easier than last prep. I didn't know what a creamy was prior to this prep. And if you don't know, educate yourself because it is worth the investment. So we'll have our creamies at night, and if we're not like bundled up ahead of time, like we'll pre-plan knowing that we're gonna have our creamy. We'll put on like a flannel and a sweatshirt, long socks, because otherwise you get the creamy chills, and there's no coming out of it. You just get like super super cold. So going somewhere warm at this point in time when we are lower body fat, I think honestly will feel pretty good. So 108 is a little hot, probably on the hotter side than I'd like, but we'll be inside majority of the time anyway. So
Okay, before we wrap this up, you are gonna have to explain creamies to people because that does not sound like a food or that doesn't sound like what you think I think you think it means. So I just want to clear this up before people get their own ideas of what that means.
uh, Ninja Creamy is well, actually, okay. So this is my office slash like overflow storage dumping ground. Our kitchen is very small for the amount of cooking that we do. We are pretty limited with our kitchen. So when it came to buying a Ninja Creamy blender, we went back and forth on it because it does take up a decent amount of counter space, and I'm like, I don't know if it's worth it considering that we have like no counter space to give. And he was like, well, we can just keep it in your office, like there's extra room at the end of the desk. So this is a Ninja
Okay.
Creamy. And it turns you can do a lot of things, but we use it to turn our protein shakes into ice cream. So literally I just do I fill it up with almond milk and or a half almond milk, half water. I put in a scoop of protein powder, some salt, and then like if I want to jazz it up and put in extra stuff I can, but like that's at least like the base. Sometimes I'll do sugar-free like pudding mix or like cocoa powder or something, PB Fit, whatever. And then you freeze it, and then you put it into the machine, and it like whips it up. It's magic. And it turns it into legitimate ice cream. Like you can scoop it, take the spoon, dump it upside down, and it won't fall off the spoon. And then you get to mix in whatever goodies you want. I've done like mini marshmallows in the past, banana, cereal, and then I top it with a little bit of coconut whipped cream. And calorically, it's like not very dense, and it's like it's just like a protein shake. But it's so many bites, and it literally, like the first time we sat down to eat it, I was like, "This is a lot." My husband was like, "Are you complaining?" And I'm like, "No." But it takes me like 50 minutes to sit down and like eat a whole thing. So it's like eating more than a pint of ice cream every night.
Well, thank you for adding this because I do have a list of things that ever since I've been doing this podcast, whenever a guest something says something that someone might think is sexual, but it's not, I add it to a list that I actually have on things. So you're probably like, I'm in the hundreds now. So you added Ninja Creamy.
Uh,
Ninja Creamy is now on the list, everyone. So at least, if I ever get a job, naming adult films, I'll have so many down the list. So I'll be able to work for quite a while. But no, that's awesome. And yeah,
oh, I'm glad I can contribute.
hey, guests contribute one way or the other. I'll say that. No, I'm kidding. But no, that is great. And lastly, if someone were to walk up to you and say, Maddie, we made the decision, you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding or the lifestyle in general. And if it's more than one, go ahead. And everyone would go along with it. What would be one thing you'd like to see changed?
The one thing I would like to change would be, um, I wish everyone could get along. I feel like there's such a divide with natural bodybuilding and, the untested federations. And even within federations, that are supposedly on the like same team, there's this like ownership almost over the athletes where they say that you can't compete in their federation if you're a pro for this federation and vice versa. Um, and realistically, from like an athlete standpoint, you just want to keep competing and seeing what you're capable of, and being limited by the politics of it all is unfortunate. And I think we all benefit from each other benefiting, like just bodybuilding as a sport as a whole. So if I could change one thing, I just wish that we could all support one another. Like, I don't care if you use drugs to get to where you are or you don't. Like, we all just want to better ourselves, and I think the sport could really benefit from everyone just being on the same team.
I agree completely. And this will be edited out if you don't want to. But so you are natural?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure, just because. So I was going to ask you then this at the end because again, with how many guests that I talked to, it really is just tossing a coin at this time. And I didn't
Yeah.
want to assume anything, but I mean, this is a sport where the vast majority of people. I mean, when we talk NPC, it's everyone. There might be one out of like 10,000 that isn't using something, but has it been hard for you to stay natural knowing that like so many people do it, even though I know you compete in natural shows and like
Yeah.
it's just such a big part of the sport? Has it been hard for you, even if you have and again, you can have morals and everything like that, but there's still always going to be those thoughts deep in your head like, I wonder what I would look like?
Yeah, I do like it. I do wonder what I would look like, but also at the same time, I think what's really influenced me strongly is that when I was brought into bodybuilding, and you know, genuine fitness was where that took place. Our whole gym is a natural bodybuilding gym, and the owner and my now coach Aaron Orton is one of the best representations of what's possible as a natural athlete. And so just seeing what was capable, I'm like, I don't think I need to necessarily turn to that. I also like seeing what's possible just like naturally for myself. And I feel like I've been able to just, through consistency and hard work, see what's really possible without all of that, and not have to worry about my gains going away by coming off of something. So I don't really have any interest in ever doing that. I don't have anything against people that do. It's just not something that really is ever like in like, I don't know, spoke to me.
Oh, I've said this a billion times. I have nothing against people that use. I mean, it's part of the sport, and it's the only problem that I have are two scenarios. Is when you say you can look just like me if you do my workout program, and it's like, dude, you have veins on top of your veins, and like you have like muscles that have never been discovered before. And secondly, people that glorify it and say like, oh, this is such a great thing, when it's like, no, it's not great. You're slowly, doing harm to your body. So those are the only two times where I'll ever call someone out for that. Otherwise, for me, it's like, yeah, just live and let live. And again, as long as you aren't encouraging, well, and the people that pander to the younger people too, because like there's so many times, especially in this day and age, where you see people that are like 14, 15-year-old boys, especially, where they're just like abusing stuff, and you're just, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
whole different topic. We could talk for 10 hours on that
Yeah.
topic alone,
Yeah.
but yeah, so those are my like three areas where I will get upset at you if I see someone doing that. But otherwise, to me, it's like, yeah, as long as you do your research too, and like realize that, like, yeah, it's a calculated risk. So, and there's always going to be, consequences to all the actions that you do. But yeah, I mean, Maddie, I cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing your journey with us. It was an absolute delight to talk to you, and I can't wait to see how you do this weekend. This podcast will be up probably like a week or two after you're done competing. So I'll leave a little thing down below of how she did, unless you get like last place, which is not going to happen, by the way. But if you get like last place, I'm just not going to mention it because I don't want to rub. I'm joking, everyone. But again, Maddie, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was actually a lot of fun.
I appreciate. Hey, that's what I'm here to do. I make it enjoyable for the guests and fun. But again, everyone, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.